So one of the first questions that came up when we set up this agenda was, well, why are we talking about Church and Dwight and P&G? Why not all these other wonderful companies? And the reason for that is one of our theses is we're really working hard to help people find new ways to build organic net sales. So we pulled the latest guidance from all the companies. Many of you on this call work at these companies, and we're sort of sorted them based on people we tend to work with. And both Church and Dwight and P&G are right around that 3 to 4% forward guidance into 2022. And everyone's taking prices up right now due to all the commodity troubles. So prices are going up, but let's assume there's some elasticity there. But the consumer price index just for goods excluding energy is 4% right now, the forward prediction of CPI. So essentially, all of our partners are, 4 points lower than what they're sharing here as their guidance. And so for Church and Dwight and P&G, that means, the net organic business is fairly flat. And we want to really help our partners, improve organic sales, especially with the larger brands that are out there, by finding new and interesting ways to develop unique products. And so that's kind of our mission. So within fabric care, we're going to go through fabric care and then household cleaning, and then Dylan will come in and cover oral care and the vitamin mineral supplement business. But just in terms of the scope of data, as Dylan talked about, we're pulling up stuff from search, from social media reviews and Instagram and places like that, and then from e-commerce when people are posting there. And this report looked at almost 8 million data points, consumer messages or search records. So 8 million data points. And our main focus is what's gone on the last 6 months compared to the 6 months a year ago. And sustainability is no surprise. We all know all about that. But what's really incumbent on all of us is to kind of get down that next level. Like, okay, sustainability is important. You have to have a sustainability strategy. But what does that mean in your brand? What does that mean in fabric care? And how do you describe it to consumers, and how do you build claims around it? So when we look at this chart, you'll see these tables repeatedly. We're looking at different attributes that are themes that feed into the sustainability topic, different ways that consumers are writing about it. And then we're identifying what the opportunities are: high, very high, medium, average. And then there's two different columns. So you see here, share of voice. So of all the conversations out there over the last 6 months, what share of those conversations in fabric care were around biodegradable? Those are always going to be fractions of percents. Well, in some cases below single digits, but just think about all the conversations. Most people who are writing in social media or writing on a product review are going to write something about, my product was late, the shipment was late, or it spilled, or I hate the fragrance, or I love the fragrance. So most of these shares of voices are going to be low fractions. And then the growth rate's what's really interesting. And so we're going to present these in the order of growth rate. So some of the things you're going to see at the tops of lists will be surprising, because you're like, what? That's a minor thing, but it's growth rate based. Conversely, when we talk about things that are declining, it's based on that change in consumer stuff. So there could be some big declines on important areas that are still valid, still incredibly important brand equities, but you may see some declines. So right now, when you talk about sustainability, biodegradable is at the top, earth friendly is at the top, perfume free is at the top as an overall theme. Later on in a segment, we're going to see perfume free actually is declining in one particular aspect of this, but overall as a theme, it still has a fast growth rate. Consumers will write the word sustainable. We tend to use that as an overall phrase, but they'll write the word sustainable. So that comes up: zero waste, eco-friendly. You see a lot of the hyphenated friendlies, that's consumer language, chemical-free. We expect the non-toxic to be higher here because there's so much focus on that in other categories, but in fabric care, that's on average in what they're talking about. Some of the things that declined 6 months over past 6 months surprised us. So cruelty-free declined. That lives more in the beauty area anyways. Hypoallergenic declined. And sanitizers declined. Sanitizers declined from a huge spike last year from COVID, right? So huge, enormous peak from the COVID era when everybody was disinfecting their homes. But of course, we've got two of our Church and Dwight and Procter & Gamble, at least two new products that are centered, that have launched recently, centered around disinfecting and sanitizing. One's from Febreze. They've launched a whole new line of antimicrobials for fabric sprays. And Church and Dwight launched OxyClean with sanitizer, a specific sanitizer item, and addressing the peak need last year for sanitization, but coming out this year. Now, in contrast, something that's a little bit more specialized that we noted here from P&G, they launched this new detergent that just focused on that non-toxic piece that was relatively lower on our average, non-toxic, but they tied it back to hard water. Hard water has been a theme in fabric care for a long time, and in household cleaners and soap and stuff, because so many cities have hard water, and they've developed something in this sub-brand that they have that addresses hard water, which is very, very specific going at that. So we sort of looked globally at this environmental and sustainable themes, and then we dive into natural a little bit more, which is distinct. Sustainable and natural are not the same thing, and we got to stop using them as synonyms. But a lot of the same attributes come up. Biodegradable, top one, and when consumers are talking about natural themes in fabric care, biodegradable comes up fast. Zero waste, earth friendly, and so forth. So you see the orientations change a little bit in the consumer language of sustainable topics versus natural themes. When we get into the form factors of fabric care, what they're talking about, fabric care sheets, laundry sheets are at the top. Capsules, which includes pods in a lot of cases, they'll call out pods as a trademark separately, or they'll use them synonymously, not respecting the trademarks, but capsules comes up pretty high. Beads, which is more about the odor boosters, scent boosters, sorry, and liquids and sprays come up about average. Tablets, pods, tablets, another version of pods. Ball powder declining. So you'll see, just depending on what their description is. And I wanted to make a really important point. Pods are not declining. There's still, huge piece, 15% of the fabric care market, but they had a lot more conversation last year, relatively speaking. So a slight decline in how much consumers are talking about them. They're relatively saturated. So when we get into the need states, our software uses natural language processing to figure out, well, what are they talking about where they're reflecting a need? Versus a fragrance or an attribute or something like that, where they need something that they're talking about that is example of them needing to something that will motivate them to purchase. Those needs could be making clothes brighter or longer lasting, or dealing with eczema and stuff like that. When fabric care that doesn't disturb or irritate my skin. So the top need state is stain removal. And that seems, depending on how you slice the data, that seems to bounce between stain removal or odor removal, but it's stain removal at the top right now. And that continued the last 6 months over the prior year's 6 months period. Color safe for fabric washing. And then psoriasis is a need state, as a subsegment of gentle hypoallergenic or reducing irritation. Psoriasis specifically is a term consumers are writing about. Deep cleaning was really big last year. As COVID was raging and people were talking about deep cleaning in a lot of different instances, including fabric care, but still very important this year. So that held up very strongly. Different than sanitization, different than other kinds of terms, really very specific way they talk about deep cleaning. A lot of times in fabric care, it means stripping the clothes, which is a way to get old laundry detergent out of them, as you probably know, to get them back to their refreshing colors and stuff like that. And then some of the things that declined, protecting clothes and sanitizing were on the decline. Now, fabric care protection still within the fabric care realm is still really small. That's 0.06% share of voice, but that's declined a bit over the last 6 months. Sanitization, which has many different ways of saying that, that's declined too post-COVID. Now, this is very controversial to say odor removal declined. It's still incredibly important. It's one of the core equities in the category. But compared to last year, when people were much more locked in at home, much more frequently wearing, think about summer 2020, we're all wearing the same pajamas over and over, or the same athleisure over and over. And so odor was super peaked at COVID, and people were doing their laundry less frequently. So that was just a bigger topic. It's still incredibly important right now. And here on a need state, plant-based, which, that's a need state for people. Think about that. The way they start describing it is, I need, plant-based solutions, more than just an attribute or more than an ingredient. They have a need state that's developing around, I need formulations that are going to be more environmentally friendly or plant-based. And we kind of switched gears to look at the sensory attributes. And these are, things that you smell, taste, don't taste it in fabric care. And touch. So soft, fluffy, aromatic. These are the words consumers are using most often. Aromatic in fabric care. Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's not a term as marketers we tend to use, the aroma. That belongs in food or coffee. We love that in coffee, but it's coming up in fabric care. So product reviews, people write that aromatic scent. right? And they're probably writing that about some natural product from 7th generation or something. They're going there rather than using the word fragrance. Decliners here, so fading, whitens, odor, gentle, they're down, but again, that's about the saturation. It's just the 6 months over the prior 6 months. It's not like consumers aren't talking about odor. It's just slightly down in terms of the trend from last year, or whitening or fading. You can see it's a little contradictory because whitening and stain removal were at the top of the need states before, but when we talk about sensory, they're talking about these terms: soft, fluffy, aromatic, fresh, oily is a sensory term. Obviously, in a negative case, refreshing comes up. So slightly different take on that. And as we develop communication messages, we want to always be kind of mindful of how sensory communication different from reasons to believe or more left brain stuff. And then fragrances. So here, fragrances have had a really interesting shift. A lot of it's led by botanicals and the natural products in the category. So citrus is actually growing, which is surprising, but it's not just lemon. It is citrus like bergamot orange and other kinds of more nuanced citrus flavors that you see them more often in the home fragrance area, candles and stuff, or even in perfume industry. So we're seeing some different notes, some different takes on citrus. But I think a lot of us would have gone into this thinking, well, lavender is and those kinds of essential oil types of fragrances are trending, but actually citrus is at the top. Fresh and clean takes on that, different takes on that, which is slightly different than unscented, are still trending up. Vanilla and floral. And then with the florals, it's also more subtle. It's not the old, gain, powerful floral scent. It's more about organic kinds of florals. So poppies, for example, in some of the specialty products, and some scents like that are driving that demand. And what's declining in the consumer language, original scent and lavender. We thought that was really surprising, but lavender had a big high last year. It was all about soothing and creating a safe space in the height of anxiety of COVID. So that's down from that. I don't think anybody's surprised that any kind of fruity fragrances are down quite a bit, and honeysuckle's relatively flat, I guess. So one of the insights from fabric care is going back up to the sustainability piece, is to really hone in on the vocabulary that you need to describe your sustainability benefits that best fit your brand. And I think we've all been kind of guilty of sort of more general sustainable claims or environmentally friendly claims, and not particularly careful about what's unique to our brand, that's feasible, that claims that we can make and support and get through legal, but also that makes sense to the consumer. Is it about being environmentally friendly, or is it about natural ingredients? There's a company that was a brand that was promoting plant-based and mineral-based, and that actually means something to consumers, but a lot of us could get away with a lot of products being mineral-based. Like, what exactly is that? So there's some opportunities to be very nuanced about your language, but finding out the match between what you can offer and what they find relevant, consumers find relevant in the positioning is really key. Getting that lexicon right is super important. As a category, I think this has been covered elsewhere, but fragrances that are associated with the sort of holistic wellness and self-care area, even in fabric care, are going to be relevant, and they're going to continue to rise. Like those citrus notes I described, a lot of those are used in homeopathic and in spa and wellness stuff. And so here it's about being purposeful. So, why do you have this particular fragrance? Is it for calming, stress reduction, better sleep, or is it for energizing? It could be on that side of it. And then there's a lot of conversation by consumers about balanced approaches. So not everything has to be perfectly natural. You have some room to kind of combine natural and synthetic if it kind of makes sense. And so, because we can't all have botanicals in every single product. And then finally, I want to really reemphasize that there's new angles on the existing need states and brand equities. It's not like, oh, odor doesn't matter, stains don't matter, they're not trending. Of course they matter, they're primary, but there's got to be ways to find different takes on it besides just natural stain remover or natural color safe or natural reduce irritations. We've got to work really hard to find those little angles that are unique there within fabric care.